All right, we're back on home turf.
We had an away game.
Yeah, we did.
We had an away game last month.
Away game last month. But that was fun. That was really cool.
A lot of fun.
Yeah, getting to be on the floor and live action, dragging in Matt Peterson. That was pretty funny.
That was really good.
Yeah.
We all stayed pretty focused with all the distractions going on around us. So it was nice.
Yeah, we did well. So
I talked to Matt afterwards, and he's like, "How in the world did I end up on that podcast?" And I was like, "Right place, right time, man.
Yeah.
You showed up, and you were in."
No, it's funny. He's like, "Hey, I think I'll do your podcast." Because I've asked him a couple times if he would do it. And he's like, "No, do it." And after that, he's like, "Hey, I think I'll do it now." It's like, "Oh yeah, you got to look at a little limelight."
You would think he would want to do more of that.
Yeah, it seems like his role. Like it's him, but whatever. He's also very private too.
Exactly,
a lot of things. So
yes,
but yeah, no. Great start to the year, I guess. I don't know how y'all are doing. We're pretty busy. But really, I don't know. I love everything Trump and Elon are doing. And then Bob and I were talking about bonus depreciation coming back. So the treasuries are coming down too.
Yeah. I was looking at them today and, it's like 4.3 and change or something right now, but bouncing around. But we got down to 4.16, I think, a couple days ago. Yeah. So excited about that.
Yeah. 5-year went below 4.
Yeah, that's mostly where we peg a lot of our stuff is 5-year. That's where a lot of our debt's priced off of. And so when it dipped to 3.9, we were like ready to do backflips.
Yeah.
It's like, and we're not executing that term sheet or that term sheet. Reprice.
Yeah.
But
yeah. So, well, what's new?
Well, I guess just to keep the theme of what we've been working on the last few months. Last month was a little bit different being at the show, but got some updates just on some of the key tenants. So we'll run through those real quick. Starbucks currently, and I guess caveat on this, kind of like what I've said in the past, we kind of track these a little bit different. It's not every single one, all the multi-tenant and some of the shorter term deals, but really look at it more of what kind of fits that investor profile. And typically with those guys, and we can talk about some of the others here in a minute, they're looking at kind of longer term. They're typically doing the 10-year deal. So we kind of track 8 years and more what's on the market of term. So if you look back at the beginning of January, there was like 132. Today that's bumped up. It's 149. It was at 150 last month. So it's gone up a little bit, which is pretty typical. End of the year, there'll be some closings. So January may be a little light. And then they'll start adding inventory as far as developers bringing more stuff on the market. But 149 on the market. Cap rates right now, if you go look at what's on market, the high on the list side is 665. There's a low cap rate California deal on the market, sub 4 at a 368. But the median or average is right around 585. So, and that's bumped up. If you go back and look at January, January was high. There was a 675 out there, and then it was 575 was kind of the median or the average. So it's bumped up a little bit. We're still there's still too much of that product.
Yeah. So real quick on Starbucks, I'm sorry to interrupt you on this, but there's this guy on LinkedIn who I think is totally running a Ponzi scheme. And
flush it out.
Are we calling him by name, or are we just gonna?
No, Matt Peterson knows who I'm talking about, though. If he's listening to this, he's like, "Hey, we bought this Starbucks. We have zero responsibility. And it's a brand new build." And I'm just kind of like, I go, "I don't think those are out there." He's like, "No, this is." And I was like, "So I mean, these are not absolute net deals.
They're not. No. They're not. Like there's a very few cases where they have done a ground lease or there is some situation where they don't have any responsibility, but that's very rare.
But so out of 100 deals, maybe one?
A couple.
Yeah.
Maybe something in California, maybe some unique area where they just couldn't get in there and they got their just hand forced, but that doesn't happen.
Well, I think this guy's totally full of it. And
like we're talking to him, like with Starbucks, it's like we talked about this in the past, but I really think they should trade more like a Chipotle if they would change their lease structure. For triple net, 15-year deals, They got great credit. They've got had some bumps with their stock, but that's how they should trade. And they're not right now because of that lease structure.
We own 2 Chipotles.
2 Chipotles, yeah.
And they're both selling.
Yeah.
I think
Absolutely.
right now, like one's in Ellijay, Georgia. I don't even know where that's at.
It's rural Georgia.
Yeah, and the other one's in Morganton, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is pretty rural too, but we funded those in August.
Yeah. They're already selling.
The Morganton one's closing like next week.
Yeah.
So 8 months. And then the LJ one is forecasted to close in the end of April, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So 9 months.
Yeah.
Bam.
Right on cue. We've got Chipotle updates.
So, let's go. It's our favorite place.
With Chipotle, who sponsors us, as we all know. There's 45 Chipotles on the market. So
there's how many on the market?
45.
45. Yeah. Oh, wow.
So again, we're looking at no short-term deals, no multi-tenant, kind of shopping small tenant.
What's average cap rate?
So average is like a 5. That's what we typically see them coming out at.
I don't remember what ours are at.
There's some high ones, or at least one that's at the high mark was 5.75 and the low was 4 cap. Yeah. So
I think ours are like in the mid to low 5s.
Yeah.
So we're priced well to sell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're selling there for sure. We've traded several, and they're still trading in the 4s in Texas in good markets. So, Florida markets that are more aggressive like that, California, Phoenix market would trade more aggressively, but Carolinas are great. They may be a little bit higher than Florida and Texas, but still trading well. Not as much of that product. Again, the true triple net, 15 plus years. So buyers want that type of product, especially with the Chipotle drive-through.
I think ours had those.
Yeah, that's kind of their new prototype.
Drive-through locations as well.
Yeah, single tenant drive-throughs.
Yeah, we're super pumped. A lot of spread on them.
So the other thing to note on those, we didn't talk about this on Starbucks, but there's like 19 new that came on the market this month. There were about 13 that went off market. So
there's closed, or they just got
you'll
pulled
see
off?
Like from February, there's about 39 on the market because of what's went off market that closed, and the new ones that came on the market, the inventory's up slightly, but not much. Yeah. It's still pretty healthy.
Can we go back to Starbucks? Why do they keep on opening new if there's such a clog in the artery of
they don't really care,
flushing
out? They don't, but I think they're going to get to a point where I think they're already seeing it, where they've slowed down a little bit. Their new CEO came out and he's trying to put in new, let's tweak the menu. Let's get rid of some drinks that aren't selling. Mm-hmm. Let's try to streamline. Let's try to get back to customer service and all the things that kind of made them, special, I guess. So they're trying to get back to that, I think. Some of that is, hey, let's do more remodels. They're not going to stop development, but I think they pulled back slightly because I think they need to get this figured out. Comp store sales are down, and so they're working through that. But they hadn't slowed down until recently, and so there's still a lot of that product coming on the market. As you guys said, when you funded some of those deals, these guys have been working on them for probably 6 to 12 months, maybe by the time y'all get involved. They take 12 to 24 months, depending on where they're located. So, they've got a lot more coming. So, I got to clear through that. That inventory.
I think with the new CEO, everything had to go back in for reapproval if it wasn't fully executed.
Oh, wow.
They didn't put it on hold, but they said, hey, we need to reevaluate the entire pipeline, make sure it aligns with our future goals. And so I think there was a lot of that. So there's probably a little bit of a lag, but they have to grow.
Yeah.
You can't be stagnant. So it's going to keep going.
When they've got way more competition than they've ever had, Seven Brew and Dutch Brothers and, others, they're in buyers prefer their lease structure. So I think they got to make some changes, and hopefully that's coming.
Seven Brews, little Lubbock flavor there for you.
That's a modular building too.
Is it really?
It's interesting. They do the site work, and that shows up on the back of a truck, and it's like the Murphy USA.
Murphy's deal.
Right? Same exact thing. It shows up on a truck with a crane.
Yep.
They put it all together, and
boom.
You're off and running.
We
awesome.
did. We sold that one across from campus there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then 7-Eleven real quick. So beginning of the year, there were about 57 on the market. Today, there's 53. Between last month and this month, there was, I guess, 6 that went off market that sold and 5 new ones that came on the market so far. So anyway, kind of tracking
steady.
those. Yeah, pretty steady.
Yeah.
That inventory level 18 months ago was probably more like 130. So
Okay. Wow.
they pulled back a little bit, and that product has kind of cleared some of that supply that's on the market. Cap rate wise, the high out there is like 5.65. Kind of the median or average is right at 5. And there's some California deals, ground lease, that's like 3.5. And then the price point's one that's unique on them.
Yeah.
So high price point's just under 13 million. It's like 12 and change. And then median's probably just below 8. And then there's an older deal that's right around 2 million. So I think the one that's key on this, like we were talking about before we got started, bonus depreciation. And we fully believe that gets extended. There was an article by the House Ways and Means Committee Chairman, Chairman Smith, I forget his first name, but they think they're pushing hard to keep that one bill and have it on the desk of the president by May to get it signed. So we'll see what happens, but we fully intend it gets passed, and I think that'll help that product for sure.
Yeah, totally.
It's interesting, 7-Eleven, how they've kind of chosen their lane as just the local convenience store, right?
Huh.
When you think about Racetrack and QT, all of these stations are getting bigger and bigger, right? Some of them now include the truck as well, but even those that don't have 25 pumps out in front of it, right? You go to 7-Eleven, some of their new builds are like 2 neighborhood streets surrounded by residential, and they've got 4 pumps and the little store.
Yeah.
And it's almost like they know exactly who they are.
Yeah.
And hey, we don't need to go head to head with a QT on the opposite corner. We'd rather be you're stopping there on your way to the office or on your way home. And we're just going to go more kind of in the neighborhoods on a nondescript corner that's going to be a lot cheaper, and our rent's going to be a lot less, and we don't even have to own it.
Yeah.
They're doing, to your point, they're doing that a lot, and that's kind of been their core business. But it's interesting; they're starting to do more and more of these truck stop sites that are off the interstate, and they're more expensive. So some of the ones that we're seeing come out that are those more expensive sites are those truck stop sites, just because of the fuel equipment and land size. They're going bigger and bigger. So
I think the ones we looked at were all right. The Speedway. They bought Speedway.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, I think the 2. We didn't like them. Not that we didn't like them. We just, our sweet spot's like $500,000 to $3 million for check size.
Those are a lot bigger.
Yeah. So, and then we get scared because we like velocity. And so $12 million is a different buyer than,
it is. Yeah. And we talked to a lot of groups right now. It's like, they'll ask us, what do you think? If bonus gets passed, I'm not worried about a $12, $13 million deal. We're selling one right now. It's $11 million, and there's buyers for it, but it's unique. It's like there's still exchange buyers, but there's a lot of bonus buyers, and a lot of them are waiting to see, does it get extended? They're buying at, if it's 100%. If it's just 40, which it currently is, there won't be as many buyers. But yeah. And I guess the other thing that's key with them that just came out recently was, they're talking about spinning kind of their U.S. operations off and taking that public. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. That was all just kind of hit this week.
Well, they had a lot of acquisition activity. They were looked to be acquired, right? Remember, 200 days ago or whatever.
Couche-Tard or Circle K's owner lobbed in a bid, and I think they've been trying to figure that out ever since.
$39 billion or something crazy. It was huge.
They had a big store closure too. They closed a bunch. Right? They closed like
It wasn't that many, really.
Like 50
overall.
or something?
No, it was more than that, but it was like 3% or less of their total portfolio. So it sounded probably bigger than it really was. It's just more cleanup, old stores.
Yeah. We were driving through Mansfield this week, and I think there were 3 new ones that were under construction.
Yeah.
You know, they look great. You got the stone facade, and obviously the city's mandating that, but, you know, very nice, but neighborhood plays.
Yeah.
And they're off the retail node, either on their own or kind of on the edge of it.
Right.
Just interesting.
Yeah. They've done real well in those neighborhood markets, like you're talking about, out kind of at the entrance of a neighborhood.
Sure.
It's kind of the local spot where, you know, all the neighborhood can fill up, get gas before or after work, and pick up whatever milk or eggs or whatever they want.
Yeah. All right.
I guess just a couple other things I was noting since we last talked. There was a pretty good list I saw. Thought I'd throw it out there for you guys, but just some, you know, groups that are either expanding or contracting.
Okay.
So we talked with a group we're part about with some of the sites that are coming up that are available, some groups that are downsizing or, you know, filing bankruptcy. I don't know if y'all saw the news on the border, you know, talking about filing, but they're going to have sites that are available.
That's the restaurant, correct?
Yeah.
And they actually filed.
They did. Yeah, they did file.
Yeah.
And then like KFC still shedding sites, Denny's.
They're moving here.
Burger
They're
King.
bringing
That's
the chicken to Plano.
Governor wants to rename them.
Yeah, was it?
Oh no,
Texas,
TFC.
Yeah, TFC.
TFC.
I saw that. It's pretty funny.
That's funny.
Just doesn't have the same ring.
No.
Denny's is still shedding some stores. Burger King, Wendy's, Red Lobster, TGI Fridays, Applebee's, Arby's. You know, there's kind of a laundry list of those concepts that some of them are okay, but a lot of them, you know, probably need to shed some weight.
Yeah. Are they going to be shedding like they're just older? It's not like they're done, but like there's a real shift in the design of a QSR now. It really, you know, and so like if they like obsolete layout on a site, now they're just seems like they're more compact, more efficient in a way, and so
some of them are obsolete, and it's just you know, there's not enough money that they're generating from, you know, their average unit volumes to justify, hey, we need to keep this open, or we need to do a major remodel, or it doesn't make sense to go do their new prototype. Maybe there's just too much competition, especially in that burger space. Tons of competition, you know, so some of these sites just don't make sense to redevelop. Yeah.
You know, even Fridays, they filed, and immediately a group stepped in and bought all of their airport locations because those do huge volume.
Right.
Yeah. Right. You're at the airport, you just want a beer and sit at the bar and grab something easy and quick. Yeah. And it's like, there's always value in something there. For them, it was the airport locations, but you know, you don't need a 6,000 square foot on the border that's paying big rents on a ground lease out in front of a power center.
Yeah.
Those probably aren't long for the world.
Yeah.
And then I guess kind of the opposite of that is some of the groups that are still kind of getting after it as far as, you know, really growing. Whataburger was on that list. They're still, you know, they got bought by private equity a few years ago, really trying to grow outside of Texas. And so you've got more and more franchisees that are signing up and adding units.
Yeah, I saw one in Nashville last week, and I was like, hey.
A new one?
Oh, it was a Whataburger.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just it was a Whataburger not in Texas. You know?
I went to the one on Belton coming back from San Antonio last week. That place crushes. Dylan and I stopped. We're coming back. I think we stopped like at 12:30.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the drive-through was all the way around, almost touching. Stores completely packed. Every single table was full.
If whoever figured out how the efficiency of Chick-fil-A works could instill that in Whataburger,
oh my gosh,
it would be off the chain, because that's I'll wait for it. It takes forever.
It takes forever.
Especially at midnight when you're actually in the drive-thru.
Yeah. You want the honey butter chicken biscuit, let's roll.
What's their deal? Made to order, so it takes longer. But, you know, it's Chick's is a tough one to follow. They're averaging a volume. I don't know what it is now, but it's got to be.
It's 7.5.
Yeah, it's a big
on
number.
Average.
Yeah,
7.5 million.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And you look at the ones up in Prosper, for instance, where we are. I mean, they've got one up there doing 14 million.
Oh my God.
Pretty amazing, and considering they're closed
on
one
Sundays.
day a week.
That's right. Yeah.
So one thing on Whataburger that's interesting, they're starting to look at existing restaurants that they can retrofit. That's been a big push for them, whereas before it was ground lease and we'll build our building.
Mhm.
They've tasked their brokers to go out in the market and find second-gen spaces that they can retro as much as possible, right? It speeds to market, cuts your expenses on the builds. So they're out there pushing for those big time.
Are they doing that in Texas?
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
I haven't heard really, they perform well in Texas for a long time.
Of
And
course.
like you're talking about, it's wrapped around the building. And
Yeah.
I think their AUV's easily over 3, but
Yeah,
I don't know
3.5.
how they're doing in some of those new markets. Is it
Right.
kind of like, the whole battle is in and out for guys out of California are like, that's the best.
Sure.
Texas or, guys are like Whataburger. But, when In and Out came here, I think they perform well. I don't
Yeah.
think they perform like they do in California.
No.
I wonder if that's with Whataburger as they go to new markets like Kansas City or another market, are they going to perform? How are they going to stand up?
So I was at In-N-Out last Friday off of not Mockingbird, 75, and maybe it's Caruth. You know the one I'm talking.
Yeah, kind of sandwiched.
We went there. I was doing some yard work, and we were just whipped. I'm like, let's just take the kids out real quick. So we go over there at 7:00, jammed.
Yeah.
I mean, line all the way wrapped around. The whole place is full.
Yeah.
It's just, so that, I don't know, that one crushes
that
pretty
one
hard.
does crush it. Yeah, the Chick-fil-A just a couple
Right
of
next
pads
to it?
over does really well.
I bet.
Huge
Big
And then
numbers.
there's a taco, I don't even know, Taco Del Taco.
Del Taco.
Yeah, like right in between. Oh, he's dead.
Taco Bueno.
Taco Bueno.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
just rip it down.
Yes.
Just parking
Just
for Chick-fil-A.
Parking for Chick-fil-A or parking for
In-N-Out.
In-N-Out.
Yeah.
Just rip it down. So what a waste.
The other one that was on this list was our good buddy Travis over at Velvet Taco.
Oh, yeah.
They were trying to,
Yeah.
they're getting after it, trying to grow. But
I saw Velvet Taco. I was on, there's a big food court there on Broadway in Nashville. And we went there before we went out to the bar, and there's a Velvet Taco in the
So
food court.
That food hall was curated the same as Legacy West.
Yeah.
And so
Okay.
those were the front burner guys that obviously started Velvet before they sold it to private equity.
Oh, okay.
So Velvet was kind of in their ownership group when they stepped into that.
Cool.
That's
yeah,
how it
no, it
ended up
seemed
there.
very, that's like when we walked in there, me and Cal were like, I was like, oh, this is like Legacy Hall, you know?
Yeah.
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 So-
Same exact thing.
Yeah.
Same group.
where is
So-
it? Is it right there off Broadway?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, it's just
Was it
right-
busy?
Oh, yeah. It was
Good.
packed.
Yeah.
You know?
That's a great spot for,
Yeah.
for that type of concept.
Yeah.
You know,
it said,
food
it
hall
said
was
front
kinda-
burner on there. I didn't know what
Yeah.
that meant, but that's what-
Front burner restaurant group,
Yeah.
which started Mexican Sugar,
Okay.
Velvet
Oh,
Taco.
We've got
wow.
a number of concepts.
Yeah, going back to Twin Peaks back in the day
Mhm.
before they sold that. So a lot of history with those guys.
Oh, okay.
I didn't
Cool.
know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's cool.
There's a group out of New York has a investment deal on Broadway, and it's a bar, and I forget which one it is, but it's like $40 million or something.
Yeah, they're selling
Like
it
that.
at like a 4 cap.
It's
something
crazy. Yeah,
What?
yeah.
Oh,
I got a funny story.
A Broadway story?
A Broadway story.
Come on.
Nashville Broadway. That's what
Yeah,
we're talking
yeah,
about.
get it.
So I was in Nashville last week meeting with these guys, and this guy was like, yeah, we do this, do that, and all this stuff. I was like, oh, cool. And he's like, yeah, we own a bar on Broadway, and it's right next to Garth. We actually had to, negotiate an easement with them. Garth was really cool about it. I was like, Garth Brooks negotiated your alley easement with you. Like, get the fuck out of here. That guy don't work on easements. He don't even know he owns that thing.
It sounds better to say Garth.
Oh,
Garth's
yeah.
attorney.
I was like,
Sure.
some
Yeah.
attorney. You worked with some attorney.
Right.
Yeah, let's be real.
probably the paralegal for the attorney. The
I heard
attorneys were doing
most of
bigger
those guys
stuff.
don't even own those bars. They
It's
just
just a
give them
name
naming
licensing.
rights.
Yeah.
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 That probably makes sense.
So,
I mean, the real estate down there is so outrageous, and the
Yeah.
rents on those things are astronomical.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Like, I think somebody like Eric Church may actually own his.
Yeah.
Morgan Wallen licensed his name, and
Yeah.
I'm sure he's got a stake in that of some
Yeah.
sort. But yeah, it's super rent heavy down there.
it's cool. It's cool. It was clean. Everything was really clean down there.
Yeah.
That's what I noticed.
It's a great town.
Yeah.
It's a cool town.
Yeah.
It's fun.
It was.
It's really fun. It kind of reminds me of another story with Red McCombs, the McComb dealership guys.
Yeah.
I was doing some work with Greg St. Clair, and he bought a business park down there. And he called him on the phone. He's like, "What are you talking about? I don't even know if I own that." Like, he's just like, he had so much real estate. He's like, "Hold up, let me like talk to my secretary." You know, he's like, "Oh yeah, I do own that." Like, okay, yeah, we'll get back to you on some things. Like, he was just like so out there. He's just like, "Oh shit!" Like,
first world problems.
I was like, man, should I put a hotel on here?
Hold up, wait, should we put a dealership on this thing? It's like, no, it's 9 concrete buildings. Just forget about it. So.
Good problems.
Great problems. Yeah, phenomenal.
So something we hit on before the ICSC one was kind of like, what are Walgreens going to do? And you shot me that tweet the other day. So it sounds like some people are starting to find some concepts for these.
Well, yeah. So, and even a couple episodes back, we talked about Sycamore Partners stepping in. Well, it looks like that's obviously going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's now you just lit that whole thing on fire, right? Like whatever was going to happen, you just accelerated that timeline exponentially.
Yeah.
So I think you're going to see an immediate cutting of the fat, right? It's like dispose of everything you can dispose of that's a non-core asset.
Yeah.
You basically just brought Doge into Walgreens.
Yeah.
You just doged Walgreens. And so that's going to go from personnel at the headquarters to office leases around the country to retail footprints.
Right.
And they're immediately going to cut all of that and then try to suck out as much revenue out of the core assets that remain as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, it still leads back to the question we've talked about before. What do you do with those? And the tweet that I sent you was down in South Florida. They'd taken Walgreens and made it a high-end car dealership.
Yeah.
Because they didn't need much inventory. So it was like, hey, we got enough parking, and
so
a lot of our show
the building
100%. So the building becomes an interior showroom.
Right.
You then have exterior customer parking and some display cars out there. Now, again, that's one out of
that works in
200.
Miami.
Works in Miami. I totally get it.
Yeah.
What about Dayton, Ohio?
Yeah. That's the Dayton Lamborghini dealership.
It's a John Deere showroom.
But it's like, you're going to have to get creative. The point of that whole story is like, all right, these buildings, you got to get creative, whether it's reuse it as a car wash or a C-store, or obviously the easy ones are the Dollar Trees and the Dollar Generals of the world. But those guys aren't paying the freight that Walgreens or CVS is paying.
Yeah.
So how do you, what other creative uses can you come up with to, there's a lot of value in that building, but it's so expensive to split those and demise them up into leasable spaces. You're going to see some dinosaurs that are going to sit there for a while. And even a lot of the Dollar General conversions that you see, those are just kind of short-term subleases.
Yeah.
Right. CVS went dark with 7 years remaining. They're paying $400,000 a year. Well, Dollar Tree's only paying them $150,000 a year.
Yeah.
But they're at least that's something, right? And you have somebody in the building, so you don't have to worry about vandalism and all the other things that come into that, right? So it's like we'd rather have somebody pay something and occupy the space. But fast forward when that 4-year term is up or 7-year term is up, that space is going back to the landlord. What becomes of that building?
Mm-hmm.
And you bought it at a certain cap with underwriting a $400,000 rent that you've been collecting for the last 15 years. And now you're like, well, Dollar Tree will stay, but for $150,000 a year.
Oof.
We're working through one right now where it's a redevelopment play, and the current owner, I don't know what he spent, but significant amount of money, maybe $5 million. And he's trying the balance act of Walgreens was sending him buyout proposals of the lease. He's smart in that he doesn't want to do that prior to having kind of a sale lined up with somebody else.
Yeah.
So collectively, he gets whole or close to it as possible.
Yeah.
The problem with kind of executing on that too early is now all of a sudden he gets the check, but he's got to pay taxes, insurance, everything else until he gets his next deal lined up. So trying to juggle all that, we've got a developer group that's come in to put it under contract. But again, with them, they're looking at the buyout plus what they're acquiring it for to get to a total land cost, because that building's worthless to them.
Yeah.
They got to redevelop it. So there's a lot of moving parts.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of like what you're saying. Most people can't use that building. And if they can, they're not paying the same rent. So I think on the ones that are well located, great intersections that have been there for 20, 30 years and rents have escalated, they're going to be okay. It's all the neighborhood locations, the smaller markets. Somebody's going to get crushed on those.
So what, the building's like 8,000 feet approximately?
No,
12.
15.
15.
Yeah.
There
There are
are how many
8,000 square
basketball
footers.
courts you could fit in there. Because court space is always like a thing. You know?
What kind of revenue is that going to generate?
Yeah, well, that's
Great
the thing.
reuse. I hear you, but
Yeah.
like, what is that really
Can
going to
you pay
spin off?
rent?
I don't know.
You know, you get 2 basketball courts. That's maybe it.
Oh, you get more than that in 15,000 feet, wouldn't you?
Well, hold on. More importantly, let's back up to this owner, right? So
Yeah.
he got an offer from Walgreens at, let's make up a number, 50% of the remaining lease liability.
okay.
Now Sycamore steps in.
Yeah.
50% is gone.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
They're
going,
like,
they're going,
sue
hey,
me.
we'll just bankrupt the company
But-
and dispose of this for free
Right.
and then emerge out of bankruptcy and move on down the road. So
Yeah.
our offer went from 50 to 20.
Yeah.
So you probably should have taken the 50, right? And just
Right.
in theory, those are the kind of conversations that are going to take place. So it's one of those,
Oof.
yeah.
That's
It's,
what someone was talking and
be careful how you play your cards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone put up a tweet the other day and was talking about this broker told me they had good credit because they have all these locations. I go, for me, it's always when people say, oh, they're PE backed. It's good credit. I was like, man, those guys will cut that
Savage.
thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right.
Savages.
They will cut it so
Yeah.
quick.
well, we always say like, there's a dude over there that's much smarter than us.
Yeah.
Totally.
Much smart. And there's
And all
probably
he
like
does
a
all
couple
day is
dozen
stare
of
at
them.
spreadsheets and
Yes.
try to find ways to optimize earnings
Yeah.
for their
Yeah.
investors.
Yeah.
And that's it.
We
That's
looked,
right.
We looked at a dual deal. Is one tenant just got bought by PE in 2 warehouses out in Fort Worth. And the broker's like, oh, this is great. You know, they got one down the street, blah, blah. I'm like, no, this
No,
is
it's
a death
bad.
sentence.
Yeah. One of these is going away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both of them might go away because then it's going to China. You know, like they're making pillows. They don't give a shit. Like, it's-
Is it Mr. Pillow?
no, it's not. It's not Mr. Pillow. He was a good American.
I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what comes of those things in this world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're right, though, too. I think in some cases they're like, if they don't get what they want, throw it into bankruptcy, reject leases, get it down to the ones they want.
That's right.
And they've got a plan for what they're going to do with that.
100%.
So much PTSD.
Some people think bankruptcy is a way out. Some people think it's a solution.
Right?
Yeah. We are.
Temporary pain for long-term gain.
Yes.
But speaking of bankruptcy, I was reading about Party City, right? So
yeah.
they went BK. Thought it was interesting. Dollar Tree assumed 148 of their leases.
Wow.
Yeah, so talk about, immediately overnight adding that.
Is that a bigger footprint for Dollar Tree or is that kind of?
No, it's roughly the same. So they
Okay.
were like 8 to 12,000 square feet, which
Okay.
is that's probably right in par for a lot of the Dollar Tree stuff we see now. There's some that are a little bit smaller, but
Okay.
that's right in line. But it generated $14.5 million in gross proceeds for the bankruptcy auction.
Wow.
And then in addition to
so
that,
fascinates me that they could sell their lease
Yeah.
values.
dude, there were a lot of those. It's funny to me when you see the landlord that bought the lease,
Yeah.
right? Because they want to get control of
Right.
that because they know they can
Right.
lease it for a
Mhm.
higher value. So
Yeah.
they're actually bidding for space in their own center.
They're bidding to get their space back in their own building.
Yes.
Dude,
From their
that's-
tenant that BK.
Isn't that wild?
Can they just offer what kind of the obligations left and then it just offsets? I don't
It's
I don't
probably
know
like an
how-
auction process because they have.
It's definitely the auction process. So
It's
They're at 16 net.
But they're
Landlord thinks it's
assuming-
24.
Or they're bidding on something that whoever wins it has to pay them rent. So maybe are they buying that obligation to themselves, really? So now they get control of it?
well, yeah, the idea is that, Party City was paying $8 a foot. Market rent is now
Right.
22.
Right.
Yeah.
I just want to buy this and I'm willing to come. It's almost like paying a TI
Yeah.
allowance.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd rather pay $250,000 right now to
Get
get
control,
control of
it.
that
Yeah.
space and turn around and sign a new 10-year lease with
Yeah.
whomever
Right.
at $22 a foot.
Well, it works for the landlord too because he can capitalize on just terminating the lease versus
Yeah.
someone else that buys it and has to move in there and then look for coming back whenever the renewal comes up and getting,
Well, and a lot of those were, that was a 10-year deal with 4 or 5-year options.
Right.
Yeah.
They may only be
They've
5 years
tied
into
up
that
for a
primary
while.
term, and
Yeah.
all of those are stated rent options. So
Yeah.
you may be looking at 20 years of under market rents in the
Right.
future, and you're like, I've got to control this space.
yeah.
We're gonna be proactive and get out in front of it. Now, if it clears all of that process and nobody picks it up, you're going to get it back anyways.
Yeah.
Sure.
But that's the that's the hurdle there.
Why,
It's like, well,
why leave it to
how
chance?
that's right. Yeah. So Party City also sold all of their intellectual property and wholesale operations for $20 million. So, anyways, $35 million goes back into the kitty to pay back the, creditors.
What was the total of the bankruptcy? Do you know?
I don't.
Oh.
Yeah. Those were two big highlights of, we've spoken about it on every podcast, but monetizing your real estate.
That is so
what does that mean after bankruptcy? And it's like, hey, look, if Party City owed you money, this is a great news for you. You may not be getting made whole, but at least there's money coming back into the kitty that's getting distributed out.
Yeah.
Dude, my wheels are turning so hard right
I'm
now.
thinking about buying options on leases.
Yes. I literally just we saw some deals today. I'm like, oh, okay. How's this work? That's so interesting.
Yeah.
The difference is, though, is that there's so many of these locations, whereas like with us, you get like one per market. Maybe you get three. Maybe.
Yeah.
So.
Let's see. Some other highlights. Well, again, bankruptcy. Joann's obviously filed BK. They're going to shutter all of their stores. It's going to go through the same kind of process. They have some pretty good real estate out there. Those are a little bit bigger. Those in like the 20 to 25,000 square foot range. But it'd be interesting to see kind of how that activity goes. And
you think Sally's Beauty Supply steps in? Wait, Joann's isn't
Joann's
like Sally.
is fabrics.
Fabrics,
Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
But by the way, did you see Sally's moved to Plano?
Oh, did they?
So they were in Denton.
Yeah,
they're
in Denton.
Yeah. No, so they just signed a lease. They're moving to your Liberty Mutual space
Really?
at Legacy West.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah. So I think there were 4 additional floors, maybe more than that weren't occupied. So they're actually moving the headquarters to Plano.
Wow.
Yeah.
it's
Have
pretty
you had any
nice.
clients that have assumed leases through bankruptcy process?
We've looked at a bunch. In fact, I had dinner with the guys from Burlington at ICSC, and I was with the head of real estate, and he was talking about how efficient their process is now because there's so much of this going on all across the country. He's like, all I need is your list of stores, and we can immediately plug it into our algorithm and figure out where are the holes. What does our asset look like in that market? Would we rather be in this one? Well, how much lease term do we have yet left? And he's like, I can get a list from Joann's or whoever it may be. And he's like, I can have it flipped in a week of the stores that we want. And what are we willing to pay for those stores?
Do they have to look? Do you know if they have to look at restrictions? Because this came up with somebody else I was talking about. I thought what they said in bankruptcy,
Right.
they could go assume leases and the landlord didn't have any control around restrictions maybe within the lease, but I don't know if that's accurate.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the case or not. That would be interesting. I mean, look, if it's staying in a similar lane, you're probably good. But yeah, you're right. If you wanted to, assume the Party City's Cavenders took a lot of those.
Yeah.
Right. Well, what if Boot Barn is right
That's
next
right.
to them?
Yeah.
Can they operate?
Right.
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's a case by case basis or if because it's in bankruptcy, if it's kind of a magic wand that
I almost
You can get around
thought
Or it might be
somebody
just
said the
buyer
judge.
beware, right?
Yeah.
Like,
maybe.
buy at your own risk. I guess.
Yeah.
And does that run with that runs with the center? So
With
is
the
that
center.
necessarily in their lease that someone else can't show up, or is that just like in the center bylaws or something?
Yeah, so a lot of times we attach it as an exhibit to the lease document,
Oh,
and
okay.
it says exclusives in the center. So you can't sell more than 50% salads or whatever it may be. And so that's attached as an exhibit to the lease.
Okay.
So
Kinda like
maybe
what
that's
you
a deeper
said, Boot
dive.
Barn and Cavenders, they compete. So
Yeah, that don't
if
mix.
Boot Barn goes in, they don't want Cavenders in there,
Yeah,
and
that's
so
right.
they'll restrict them.
Yeah.
But I've heard maybe the judge has more leeway in bankruptcy. He's like trying to get money back to the creditors. So I don't know if some of that stuff gets thrown out. Maybe it's something.
Yeah.
Dude, I'd
Ooh.
turn around and
That
sue
would-
that.
that would be-
sue if you're Cavenders, right? And you just did a big TI and you're like, I need to be in this zip code. And all of a sudden Boot Barn buys out the Party City location. I'd be so mad.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you couldn't. That the landlord would be in default.
Well, the landlord didn't have any. Maybe
Right.
we gotta
Yeah.
do a little more research.
That'd be
Yeah.
interesting though,
That's-
because that
no,
could be
that
like
would
a
be.
real technicality that like
Yeah.
you can just go in and take over, buy the lease.
And maybe they've just got to, maybe like you said earlier, buyer beware. Maybe once they're under contract, they're like, you got to read through all
There
the
has to be
leases
some
and
kind of due diligence.
make sure
period
that
on
you're comfortable. throw out the ones that don't work.
I wonder if does the landlord have to approve the sale?
Yeah.
Too?
I don't think landlord.
I don't think
gets,
they have any input.
Yeah.
I don't
right?
think so.
Because otherwise, you would that under market scenario we explained earlier, you would just immediately reject everything. Oh yeah, we don't want that. We don't want that.
Yeah.
Hoping that ultimately you get the space back.
Just get it back.
You have no, especially in a lot of those anchor leases. Now a small shop is probably going to be different, but the anchors, you had the ability to assign it to whoever you wanted to. In most instances,
It's so cool.
Yeah,
but it sucks. I mean, imagine if you're a landlord. And Party City goes out. And then some tenant buys it that you're like, I don't want that in my center.
Right.
And you're like, you're hung with it.
Yeah, you are. You don't get to.
That's
I think you can object to all that stuff and you can hire your own bankruptcy attorney to go in there.
Cute.
But
thanks for calling.
Yeah.
Yep.
Bye, Jeremy.
Oh yeah, we heard that before. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We did some work for Blockbuster when they went through bankruptcy and worked on, I don't know, they had 8,000 stores still then. I don't know what it was, but we were working in-house with them on an outsourced basis. But it's funny, we were working through different sites and there was one, actually the one in Uptown, it's now like a Men's Warehouse, but the group that owned it were sharp. They were long-term real estate guys. One of the head guys is an attorney. And I talked to him like, hey, this is what we need to do to keep it open until, when a lot of people would agree to, hey, a low rent, you keep paying taxes, insurance, maintenance. We had a mutual termination right. A lot of people would do that. This guy would not. It was under market. He wanted it back. Yeah. And so it was kind of a short conversation, all friendly, just, it's just like a business transaction.
Yeah.
And then a day or two later, I get called by one of the outside counsel for Blockbuster and like, what'd you do to these guys? They're like, I'm like, what are you talking about? They don't want to work with us. They're like, they filed this motion to compel. And I'm like, okay, what's that? And I guess it just put a lot of pressure on them where they had to make a decision really quick on the site. They didn't get their normal time through the court, but this guy was smart. He hires a bankruptcy attorney out of New York or wherever the case was filed. He files in this motion, puts a lot of pressure on them. They're trying to make decisions on the portfolio in, overall. And all of a sudden they got this one problem that they got to deal with right now. Anyway, it was interesting.
Yeah.
I love real estate chess.
Yeah. that was it. And they lost that one.
The last 12 months, we've played lots of real estate chess.
I played it this morning with the tenant.
Yes.
So this is kind of falls in the lease assumptions too.
Yeah.
I had a tenant sell his business and the buyer was, I guess, an employee of his or something. And they've been extremely just difficult. Well, we created a lease assumption document and I thought they'd executed it because I'd signed it or whatever. And turns out they haven't signed the lease assumption yet because whenever we were under getting all this all done, they're paying rent,
How long ago?
This is recent.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's just like, like, hey.
Is it in like a year later?
No. This is like a month
Well,
later.
we were refinancing the property and stuff. And so there's a lot of moving pieces here.
And they were real difficult, this new tenant. And I was just like, and we kind of just agreed to whatever because it just made sense, right? It's just like, we don't need it has a year left on the lease, all this stuff. Well, I reached out to him. I said, hey, you haven't signed this assumption. And they're like, well, they went and filed for a new CO, which was totally stupid.
Right.
But I was like, I don't know why you did that. I don't know why you invited that on yourself, but whatever. That's your problem. Like, don't call me about it. And so they go, well, we haven't signed it yet because under section 6.03 of the lease, we are protected while we go through the CO process. And when that section reads that, hey, if you are required to get a CO, you will.
Right.
Now, this is the existing lease they're already assuming for a CO that's already in the space.
Right.
And, if the landlord or tenant is unwilling to make the repairs to do so, then you could terminate the lease. She's like, well, I don't know what the hurry is for us to sign this if we have this. And I was like, you don't have that. You haven't assumed the lease.
Yeah.
But I didn't tell her that, so I just terminated the DocuSign.
There you go.
I was like, I think I'd rather not have an agreement with you than have an agreement with you.
Yeah.
So
wow,
it's going to be, I'll just terminate the current tenant who we've already pretty much gotten paid from. And
Looks like you're
trespassing. Are you trespassing?
The door's there. See those 4 letters? Exit.
Yeah.
Roll the door up. There you go.
So,
a couple other highlights. Sprouts has announced they're going to open 35 new stores across the country after a quote unquote remarkable 2024.
Are they publicly traded?
I don't think they are.
I like them.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. Yeah. They really, they've got a great niche, right?
Yeah,
I think they know exactly who they are and they kind of stay in that lane and serve a specific market that does very well, caters to. So
yeah,
great job on those guys.
All natural.
The prices are all natural too.
Yeah. And then the other thing was right across from you guys, Willow Bend Centennial announced their plans for a mixed use development. So I think that'll be the 8th time that mall has been redeveloped. But this one would actually add multifamily and
office space.
Yeah. So it appears they're doing all the right things.
Yeah.
And blowing up half of that mall, which is what really needs to happen. I don't know if you've walked inside, but
no,
Apple was really the last
real tenant
that was driving traffic outside of obviously Neiman's and the last internal tenant that was driving any sort of real traffic. And I think once Apple closed, that was really a nail in the coffin for that mall.
Yeah.
The stuff on the peripheral, right? Neiman's and Resto and those guys do well, but the inside it's a ghost town in there.
I kind of want to go over there. We should go over there next week. And
I took the kids there for Chick-fil-A one day in the food court, and then we kind of walked out, and it was a ghost town.
Oh yeah.
I want to go see it.
Yeah, you got a guy like sharpening knives. Like he has a storefront and he just sharpens knives and sells pocket knives, and you're like, if he's a mall tenant, like you got problems. You got problems. But anyways, hopefully that. I mean, it's just so well located. It's great real estate. I mean, so hopefully Centennial can really turn that thing around and get them going in the right direction. But that's a big undertaking.
That's a value add project right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A couple B's behind it.
Yeah.
It's a big capital stack. Hard pass.
You guys aren't funding that?
No, dude.
We like TIs under like $200,000.
Yeah. Preferably under 50.
Like preferably house as is.
Yeah. Yes. Landlord special. Yeah.
1 month's free rent.
Yes.
Maybe 2. I don't know. So.
Sign a 5-year, we'll give you 2. But do you know how many multi-units they're putting in there?
I don't. I think one of the, I forget which anchor, but they're tearing down one of the big boxes and then going vertical there with the multi. And I think similar to what you've seen at Stonebriar with the Hyatt Regency and the Kidzania and all of that, trying to activate the stuff around it and go vertical on projects. So
the mall game is totally different.
Oh, 100%.
Have you ever studied or looked at a mall deal before? You'll have like Dillard's will own their store.
Yeah.
It's like so convoluted.
Yeah. We were trying to find the way to make Dillard's a DC with a truck access at the Irving Mall because that thing's not dead too.
Yeah. Right there on 183.
Yeah. It's almost like just Big T Bazaar now.
Yeah. But no, that's a totally different game.
They're building a bunch of office towers there too.
Yeah.
Office might be coming back. Maybe the people that bet on office are going to do just fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maybe.
Everybody's trying to get people back in the office.
I don't think it works any other way, really.
Yeah.
It's not really.
For most
Google,
roles.
like I just read where Google wants everybody back in the office during the work week. I mean, if those guys are doing it, like everybody's moving that direction.
Well, we highlighted it on one of our shop talks with Jamie Dimon. I mean, he just like lost his mind in an internal
great
town
audio.
hall. Oh yeah, if you listen to it, it's amazing.
Yeah. He was on the tear.
You know, he's like, look, some business units it works really well. You're in a call center, and you're in an environment, your home space that is conducive to hitting our metrics. Fine. If not, butt in the seat.
Yeah.
So
it's too important. Like you want to have that synergy in the office and trade ideas. And that's, it's easy to work with people and get stuff done, and you need a quick answer and pull somebody in on a call or meeting, like I'm not a big fan of. I mean, there's times to work remote.
Sure.
I think also to take it a step further, I feel like we're seeing a shift in having to be politically correct, right? Like if Diamond had that conversation 2 years ago, he gets blasted from every different angle about how insensitive he is and all of these things, right? And now you look at it, right? And you're like, this is going on in the Oval Office. I can say it in my company's, conference room.
Right.
And so I think we're definitely seeing a shift in what's acceptable, publicly perceived as acceptable for leadership to kind of throw out as a mandate. And so I think that's only going to continue over the next 4 years.
Well, you can't get, you would get canceled.
Right.
For those things.
Sure.
It's like, oh, golly, somebody cried about this, so we have to fire you,
Right. Or, hey, I need to publicly apologize for my comments were insensitive to those people that need to work from home. And we understand it's family first and whatever, right? There would have been some statement that came out apologizing for his insensitivities. Not anymore. I think it's like, hey, we have done a 180 from where we've been over the last 4 years.
Yeah.
He was dropping F-bombs on that thing.
Oh,
I think. It's just.
He did
what was
not
he
hold
on?
back.
I missed it.
It was an internal town hall.
Oh, it was. Okay.
And somebody recorded it, and then it got leaked.
They sent it to the press, and it went everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's great.
Yeah.
I don't know that
he
it had
says is wrong.
What do you drop an F-bomb, though? Like somebody from that was part of the meeting asked him a question.
Yeah, he was like,
no. He's on one. There's no question. He is on
it's a monologue.
Okay, yeah.
And he's talking about how guys on Zoom are texting each other about stuff that's
look at this
fun.
fucking asshole while he's up there, blah 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 blah. Like just like be you and me, Bob, talking about how Jeremy's on the screen, like this douchebag, like, and you're not paying attention,
right?
And he's like, we can see you not paying attention, like the fuck is wrong with you?
He's like, it took 7 approvals in subcommittees to get something done.
Yeah,
and he's like, that means I need to, dismantle 7 different subcommittees.
Yeah.
Like we shouldn't be that structured that we can't make decisions without going through 7 different layers of approvals.
Wow.
And anyways, he was fired up.
Yeah,
I wonder if the person that leaked it thought it would have the effect that it did.
Oh, 100%. They knew exactly what they were doing.
No, I know. No, but what I'm saying is, were they hoping that it would take him down?
Correct.
Versus,
versus they thought, they're still thinking 2 years ago where he's going to get crucified for having this thought process.
And he got praised for it.
It's the opposite. It's like, we're with him. CEOs all across the country are like, thank you. Like you just said what we've been thinking, but we're afraid to say. You just got out there and said it for us. Well, I mean, so now we get to sit back. It's also not an accident that JP Morgan Chase is the largest real estate financer in the world.
Yeah.
They have more debt out on office buildings than anybody else in the globe.
Yeah.
Well, who a return to office, who would that benefit?
Yeah.
Landlords that then benefit him because they're paying their debt on time.
Yeah.
So I also don't think that that's an accident either. There's a direct tie-in where he's like, I can't, if I'm not forcing my people into the office, how can I, yell at, debtors that are not paying their notes because people are not coming into the office. So anyways, I think there's a direct correlation.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
Direct correlation with that too.
Well, I mean, it helped when Trump and Elon were like, hey, federal workers, see you on Monday at the office.
Yeah. And can you send us five bullet points of what you did last week?
So
people lost their minds.
Oh my gosh.
Did you see that?
I did. Like that.
So awesome.
Drink those liberal tears.
When have you had a president have the press in there and he's got all his senior members and they're taking questions?
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that
a lot
was
of transparency.
Yeah.
The other thing that's interesting, I read Elon's biography. It's long, but it's really good and it's interesting. After you kind of see what he's done at SpaceX and Twitter or X now, and everything he goes through, like in the book, it talks about, it's interesting now reflecting on what he's doing now, because in the book, he talks about, he wants to eliminate anything that's repetitive or doesn't make sense. And what he says a lot in the book is like, if you don't go back and add things back, you're not cutting enough. So he's all about eliminating wasteful tasks and process, like you're talking about with JP Morgan going through, 7 approvals. He'd be like, No, that's way too many.
Yeah.
So he even said it in one of the press conferences where they asked him like, hey, you added a department back. And he's like, yeah, we were going fast. We cut it and we shouldn't have, but it was the right thing to add it back, which I think is great. Like if they make a mistake, own up, let's go put it back. But if you're not, it's interesting though, reflecting on his book where he's like, you got to cut stuff out. And if you don't go back and add stuff, you're not going
deep enough.
Deep enough. Yeah.
That's what me and Dylan, when we were driving to get lunch a second ago, we were talking about it. He goes, yeah, man. He goes, the one thing I was worried about is they cut a lot of the parks people down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I said, man, they'll add that stuff back.
Yeah.
I go, they'll see where the holes are at and go, okay, this makes sense to put someone there. But to your point, I think it's just a matter of thin it out so hard, and then you'll see where the stress is at.
Right.
After that, and then you hire back for those things. So
can we go back to grocery stores? Because I've seen a ton of Aldi's, like them touting like they're trying to open up 1,000 locations, I think this year, or just in general. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Have you guys been kind of tracking that at all?
Yeah, they do a lot of ground up builds is kind of traditionally how they've grown, but we've also seen them come back in and do junior anchor spaces and somebody like a Joann's, for instance.
Yeah.
If there's no grocery store in those centers, that could be a great spot for some of those opportunities. But they've been very successful in their growth. And I think they, again, like Sprouts, they know their lane and it's very streamlined, right? You got only one or two of X products.
Yeah.
And it's at a budget price and it doesn't have all the fancy this and fancy that. It's very streamlined in their offering, but they've been very successful and kind of carved out that niche.
All kind of private label, right?
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're growing aggressively. So it'll be interesting. I think they're doing really well and numbers coming back are strong. So
if they develop, do they own or do they develop, sign, lease, sell? Like what's or is there not really enough of a track record right now at this point?
I think they definitely own, but they're doing leases as well.
Okay.
So
I think you'd have to if you want to open 1,000 stores.
That's right.
Yeah, 100%.
Just suck all your capital up into real estate.
Yeah.
Right.
We had in the news the last week, Neiman Marcus, downtown Dallas.
Yeah,
it's been very, very interesting. And as soon as Saks came out and said, hey, we're closing it, blamed it on the landlord, I was like, no way. Like, that's Saks get out of jail free card.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not us. Like, we would never close the flagship.
Yeah.
Well, then immediately the landlord and city of Dallas solved for that, right? They transferred the deed to the city of Dallas, which then would allow Neiman's to stay in place. And Saks comes out and makes an announcement that absolutely not are we keeping this store open. It was like, see, like we knew you were going to close no matter what.
Mhm.
And, there's no way to sugarcoat that. Like that is a huge blow for downtown Dallas.
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Oh, 100%. Like that was a staple
Right.
that kept retail in downtown Dallas, Class A retail, right? Beautiful stores. I mean,
Mhm.
you go up and have lunch or afternoon tea up there. And then it was a whole shopping experience with 7 floors of retail.
Yeah.
With that gone, it's not going to be retail. Maybe the first floor stays retail, but does that become multifamily? Does that become a hotel? Do you keep the Zodiac on the top floor as a restaurant? How do you repurpose that building? But somebody's going to spend a fortune to redo that building. But regardless, that is a massive blow for downtown Dallas. Very unfortunate. I think the Neiman's family kept that around, whether it was making money or not.
Yeah.
The nostalgia of it was always going to be there. Well, Saks comes in, buys the company. They don't care about nostalgia, right?
They weren't there. They weren't
a part of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
they don't have those memories.
Right. And then, the city gave the Neiman, I think there's a $3 million incentive that went to them putting their offices in City Place, which Saks said, we're going to close that office as well.
Yeah.
The city's like, well, wait a second. We gave $3 million contribution to this. And of course, Saks tries to put a spin on it and says, oh, well, we're going to upgrade the North Park store, and invest $120 million into that facility. Okay, well, that'd be great, but
sure,
that's not going to help downtown Dallas. Those are 2 separate deals. Let's be very clear.
Everybody wants to go to that store.
Sure, right. And so anyways, the city of Dallas stepped up about the City Place lease and what happens to that incentive package that was given just a few years ago. And how does all of that play in? But I think ultimately where we sit at this recording is that store is going to close in downtown Dallas. And I think it's going to take a creative developer to step in and repurpose that building. But regardless, it's downtown Dallas has kind of had its ebbs and flows, and this is unfortunately a huge blow for us as a city.
What I've never been in that building.
Okay,
I kind of want to go now. Just see it before.
So
it
I don't think it closes until May. I think is the target closing date.
But you said there's other retail tenants up in there, right?
No, they have different floors of retail.
Oh.
So the 5th floor is men's, and the 1st floor is perfumes and handbags. And the 2nd floor,
gotcha.
But
it's just like in New York, right?
100%.
Okay.
Jess and I stayed downtown, and like that was one of our afternoons, right?
Yeah.
We walked to Neiman's. She bought a bag and whatever.
Yeah.
And we went and had, lunch upstairs. And like, it's a fun experience.
Yeah.
And like old time, I mean, that used to be.
That's old school.
That's old school. People would come in from all around the state.
Yeah.
And like, that was your high end shopping trip, right?
Yeah.
You'd fly in or drive in from Midland or fly in or whatever. And like, you went to Neiman's downtown.
Their personal shopper
100%.
or whoever.
Yeah.
I mean, the lady that sold us the perfume that day that we were there, she had worked at that store for 35 years selling perfume.
Wow.
And like we're just standing there, new customers by name that would come multiple times a year. So anyways, it was that high-end destination, and it's a great experience. So you guys definitely need to at least go down there before it closes. And it's, it's like breakfast at Tiffany's, right? Like that's what you feel like you're a part of something that has been around for a long, long time and is a cool experience.
How many times did you do the afternoon tea?
That one and only, one and only. But it was a fun day. And like I got to be honest, I knew of it. Obviously,
right.
It was a selling point for downtown Dallas, but I never spent any time there.
Yeah,
I just walked through the 1st floor, but then spending a few hours there, you're like, all right, it's not my deal, but I get it.
Right.
I understand the appeal of this, but Saks doesn't care.
Yeah.
It's what's the bottom line? How much did that store generate, and what's it costing us?
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, well, we're going to blame it on the landlord and let's move on down the road. I don't think Saks had any idea of the blowback that they were going to get from the city of Dallas coming after this can't close.
Yeah.
And ultimately that was the spin. Oh, well, we're investing in North Park and the landlord's forcing us out. Well, that wasn't enough. That they actually fixed it.
We'll figure that out.
They fixed it.
What was the perceived issue with the landlord?
Yeah, so there was like a small piece of land that's adjacent to it that was in contention that the landlord, I don't know the exact details. The point was that it was a point of land that Saks couldn't control, that the landlord controlled, and there was back and forth about what could be built there and what have you. And then I think it was up for renewal, and it was like, oh, well, they don't want to work with us, so we're just not going to renew. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't think it was ever their intention to renew. It was like, hey, this store's just going to close in its natural.
So their lease is expiring this May.
Yeah.
So
that's a parking lot next to it, I think.
Is it?
Yeah, because I was looking at it when it came out. I was like, oh, what's here? So it's just started going on parcel ID.
Right.
And I saw like the city, it was in the city. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
How? It was kind of confusing.
Yeah.
It gets kind of choppy down there though.
Yeah. And so
there's a parking lot.
The landlord traded that or gave that deed to the city. So the city now owns the land that Neiman sits on. And it was like, we'll work whatever renewal you want to.
Yeah. Let's get it done.
Let's get it done.
Yeah.
And it was like, no, we're not interested.
Yeah,
that's not really what we wanted.
Not good enough.
And I'm sure Saks looks at that and they're like, we're going to transfer all the sales from here right up the street to North Park. Like
that's right.
They're looking at a big windfall.
And was that acquisition the Saks Amazon partnership? Because Amazon's involved somewhere, I think. They had a retail bucket of money. If you looked it up, it would. I think Saks and Amazon partnered, I think, on the Neiman acquisition. I'm not sure Amazon's like I think they just threw some money in it via one of their balance sheets. But But growing up, like Macy's in New York City on 34th, like that's very similar experience. Yeah. Like there's 4 or 5 stories. It's the whole freaking block. Yeah, it's just it's fun.
Or Saks on Fifth Avenue.
Or Saks on Fifth Avenue.
Well, if the Neiman's family bought that, they could have closed it.
Yeah.
Said it went the other way.
What else? You got any more local hits?
I had a quick question. Just, we were going through looking at like what are some good potential buy opportunities, because it just seems like there's still a disconnect. And one of the things we came across were just And Rob and I touched on this just briefly, but I'll bring it up. But like a lot of the cell phone guys, whether it's T-Mobile, who Rob's got a lot of experience with, Verizon or AT&T, their cap rates are higher. They're usually shorter term leases, usually has some responsibility from the landlord. But I just saw one that was above a 7 cap and good, well located, good real estate, low price point, under $1.5 million. So you couldn't go replace that building for that cost, much less the land and building. So is there a reason why these guys all have the shorter term leases? I know that's not as appealing to a lot of these long-term investors who want a longer lease and they don't want to deal with it so frequent. But anyway, I think there's potentially an opportunity there.
Yeah, I think ultimately the cell phone stores of the future, we don't know exactly what those look like or how many we need, right? Because ultimately we can ship a phone to your house, and if you've got Android, you pop in that same SD card, fire it up, and punch in your login and download your stuff, and you're back in action in 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Do I need to have as many retail stores out there as I did in the past? And so I think technology is evolving so quickly that I think cell phone companies are somewhat hesitant. And by the way, you're thinking shorter term is like, 5, 7, 10 years, even 10-year terms are kind of short in your eyes because you're looking at 15-year ground leases or what have you. Well, in Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile's eyes, 10 years is a long
It's
time.
an eternity.
Yeah. Who even knows what a cell phone looks like in 10 years from now?
Yeah.
Right.
It may be an AirPod that you put in your ear and you just tell it what to do.
Neuralink. It'll be Neuralink.
You got cellular right into the brain.
Are you on the phone? I don't know. I can't tell. It's in your head.
So I think it's just the idea that technology is evolving so quickly that you can ask the CEOs of all of those companies and say, what does your retail footprint look like in 5 years? And like, well, what exactly am I selling?
It'll almost be more like showrooms almost where you go in, you try it on or touch it, feel it and order it, or maybe they've got some supply there.
Yeah, I mean, we did, Dallas was a test for us at T-Mobile. We opened 2, one at Legacy, Shops of Legacy here in Plano, and one at South Lake Town Square that were experience stores where super high-end technology. The table lights up, we're sliding things around. You can show all the different, the tech that's available for whatever you're trying to do, home internet, cell phones, whatever it may be, Bluetooth, all of those different things. And then, we've got, those were the largest stores we had done outside of the big, like we've got one in Vegas. It's probably 15,000 square feet that has everything under the moon there. But I do think there will come a point in time where you've got more hubs and less spokes. So I don't need a 1,800 square foot dealer T-Mobile on every corner the way that I did 15 years ago or 10 years ago.
Okay.
When you were going in and paying your bill there and my phone broke, I need something right now, or I need a burner phone that I can just pay cash for and what have you. I think that business model has evolved significantly over the last 10 years. And I think looking forward to 10 years from now, you just don't know what the technology is going to be. And, there still are going to be retail stores in the market, but do you need 100 in Dallas or do you need 35 in Dallas? Because I'm really only going there maybe once a year.
Yeah.
Or, once every 2 years when I need a new iPhone and I want to transact in the store because I feel better about talking to a person. So I think there will always be people in stores because customers are always going to want that. But a lot of folks now just want to order it online and it shows up in their house in 2 days and they pull it out of the package and call the number and activate the phone and everything's off and running. So if you're only going to go once a year, maybe you don't mind driving 15 minutes to the store instead of 5 minutes. Whereas before it was like, well, we're going to lose business because AT&T and Verizon are closer to my customers. Well, if you're only going once a year and you're already on that, nobody else, you're not getting net new customers outside of pulling them from other operators at this point. Everybody has a cell phone, right? Like you got younger kids that are growing up that are getting one for the first time, but outside of that, everybody has a device in their pocket. So all you're doing as a supplier is trying to pull from other vendors, right? So you're on Verizon today. I'm trying to push you to AT&T or whatever it may be. But there's that grab has kind of already taken place. And so now it's just let's do a better experience as a customer and maybe make it compelling enough that you come in and we can sell you on how our coverage is better and how our speeds are faster and all of these different things. But I don't need multiple points of presence on every corner around the country.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. So I would, to end that, I think it's technology and reach of these stores and what the future of the network really looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jeremy and I just both replaced our cell phones, and it is one of the most least. When I went into AT&T, I told him, I said, how fast is this going to be? Because I feel like I'm buying a car right now.
Mm-hmm.
We'd like to tell you about our financing options.
And they were
this
just
comes with free phone washes for the next 5 years.
They have eSIMs now. You don't even have to.
Yeah.
Right.
It just transfers from what you connect them, right?
I didn't realize I could do an upgrade for Emily. And so they just shipped it straight to the house.
Yeah.
And she was done. She already brought the phone back.
Right.
It's like, I'll do that next time.
Yeah.
So
to your point, like
that's it.
Just ship it to the house, make it easy.
Yeah, it's super easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, you are going to, I want to emphasize, you are going to need retail stores out there because if you shattered your phone and you need a new one right now, you need to be able to walk into that store. Or if the phone shows up and the syncing isn't working the way that you want it to,
you do not want to have to
right.
No.
And you don't want to sit on hold with somebody from customer service forever, what have you. So, but that experience is going to get better too with time as well. Yeah. But regardless, you want to know that, hey, there's the AT&T store 3 miles from your house.
The T-Mobile store.
Yeah, totally. I'm going to drive down and sit with those guys and they're going to fix my problem for me.
Yeah.
So there will still, that required footprint is going to happen. I just think that the amount of them slows down over time.
Yeah, it was just interesting looking at, there's not a lot of stuff you can go buy.
Sure.
In what we're looking at from an investment standpoint, $2 million or less. You start looking at that, it's a pretty small group. Yeah. And I think there's some of those assets where you look at them and go, man, less than $2 million on a good pad, decent sized building.
Right.
You can't go replace, like I said earlier, you can't go build that building for what you can go buy it for.
Well, and some of the challenges of the Walgreens where it's hard to re-tenant that, complete opposite, right?
That's right.
Like a 2,500 square foot building, that's well located on a pad in front of the Walmart or the HEB, whatever, that can be urgent care. That can be a bank. That can be a restaurant. There's so many different uses that fall into that size and location strategy. I think it's a great value to get out in front of. And none of those companies are going anywhere anytime soon. And even if they elected to close your store, they're going to honor the lease commitments until you're able to negotiate a termination. And then ultimately, I think you would have a significant amount of suitors that would love to jump onto that space. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of value to me in that real estate and what it could be long term.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile, those guys are not, I think they're as solid as you come. Like they're not going anywhere.
They're gonna be in the BK discussion we had.
Again, even if there's a reduction in fleet, they're gonna honor their lease commitments and do what they're supposed to do. And so anyways, I think there's great value in that.
Yeah.
In that line.
What about you guys? What are y'all investing in or placing money in? Is it?
Well, obviously we have our industrial platform, and on that we're trying to stabilize to a yield on cost in a 18 to call it a 12 to 24 month period. And that's because we're usually dealing with a bad lease, we're dealing with some kind of vacancy, or we're waiting for some kind of fuse to go. But on the retail side of the things we fund, is the good thing is we're going in at developer yields,
right?
You know what I mean? So in our we don't know retail real estate good enough to be long-term holders of it and to be able to weather all that. So we really look at it as we are short retail because our Chipotles are selling. You know what I mean? It's like we're just riding alongside the developer.
Are y'all seeking specific tenants though, or you kind of look at those opportunities as they come?
We look at them as they come, but we definitely will gravitate towards certain tenants and definitely stay away from certain tenants. And we try to stick with corporate credit versus franchisee, just because not all franchisees are bad credit. It's just that the amount of money we have to play with and our deal flow, they match itself just to do corporate credit deals.
Right.
So, but we're looking for basis is always the biggest thing for us. So, like what you're talking about on these smaller sites,
Right.
It's like, I don't think I'd buy it unless one of y'all two were like, hey, we need to buy this.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, cause I don't know what to do with it
Sure.
when that store goes away.
Right.
Like, I don't want to learn what to do with it,
Right.
But yeah, so we call our fun being short in retail versus
Makes
long.
sense.
So
And no PE, right?
Generally, ideally no.
but at the end of the day, we're in it so short that we're kind of in the deal and out. We're out of the deal before the things really go bad. You know what I mean? It's like you're not really going to catch a bankruptcy in the middle of. I mean, I'm sure it's happened, but like most tenants that are in a growth mode are not like falling off a cliff into.
Yeah.
They just don't correlate, right?
Absolutely.
So we've got an interesting one right now out in Wiley, Highway 55, which was shakes and burgers and sandwiches. This sweet old lady in Las Vegas bought this building in a 1031 exchange in late last year. Within 3 months, there was a personal guarantee on there as well. But
what tenant or
Highway 55 is the name of it.
Got it.
Within 3 months, they'd closed down 110 stores around the country.
Oh, no.
BK'd everything. And I'm sure he had already pulled whatever personal money he had, even though there was a personal guarantee.
Yeah.
He'd already, I'm sure, prearranged that. So she'd owned it for about 3 months when they went dark on a brand new build. She bought it for $3.4 million. They were paying $200,000 a year for a turnkey build to suit. And so we just took that out to the market. So if you got anybody looking for a 2,400 square foot second gen fast food operation in Wiley, we've got that. But that's a prime example of like it on paper. I'm sure she felt pretty good. Hey, they've got 115 stores around the country. I've got a personal guarantee. This should be great.
Right.
Well, all of a sudden, and they'd opened 3 of those around DFW, and immediately overnight, all 3 were closed, and you got 3 exposed landlords.
Yeah, no, most of our tenants are publicly traded. Most are, so, but back to your point of my point is that it's the next person that's probably going to experience that.
That's right.
That trauma because you're
already out.
The whole plan is, man, I mean, once that pad's poured, it's probably already being marketed,
Right.
So it's, so yeah, we're just in and out. So
yeah, the industrial side's tight.
Yeah.
But
industrial's getting tough to pencil, but
it's just, I don't know. We spend probably 30 to 40% of the day in the conference room, just get the butcher knife out. How do you carve this thing up to get to yield? It's a laborious exercise.
Yeah.
It's not, there's so many nuances in it.
Right.
You're like, oh, the roof's pitched this way, and okay, where's the access? How's the yard? What's the surfacing look like?
Yeah.
The fence, it's only 6 foot. Crime's really bad in this area.
we deal with a lot of zoning too.
A lot of
because no
zoning.
one wants us, right?
Right.
And that shit is really detailed. Like you better, ChatGPT's up. We are going through like multiple iterations of it, cross-referencing stuff. We don't work a lot with attorneys right now, but like we'll go deep. We had a deal in San Antonio. How long did Commerce take to close? I can't remember.
Like 6 to 8 months.
Yeah. Just all we had to do is just add outside storage will be permitted to the use that was there. That's all, like six words.
Yeah.
It took a long time.
Yeah.
So
it was zoned properly, but didn't have the outside storage.
This one had a zoning overlay on it, actually,
Okay.
and they essentially changed the zoning on it.
yeah.
Which they did that to us. Well, I mean, we bought a building the other day in Louisville,
Yeah.
and the day we closed, we get a letter from the city saying, hey, we're not going to allow industrial here anymore. I was like,
Yeah, they'll give you an SUP, but the SUP process takes 90 days.
Yeah.
And, for tenants between the sizes of, call it 5 to 20,000 feet, they're not waiting 90 days.
They're just
They
going
want
to go take
turnkey.
another option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I went to City of Louisville City Council and like they had the meeting. I stood up there, talked, sound like an idiot probably, but like what we do right now is primarily buying zoning.
Yeah.
You're zoned by right to do this.
Yeah.
And we are paying for that.
That's
Pretty much.
interesting. That just reminded me, City of Denver just passed something, no more convenience stores.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, I guess they're in a lawsuit. Quick Trip is suing them right now, the city, because I think they're midway through the process on, 4 deals or a handful.
Yeah.
Where they're in the city with plans and everything, but they don't have a permit yet. And they just made it,
Boom.
no more.
Yeah.
I have always wanted to sue a city, and I'm glad Quick Trip's doing it because they got the wallet to do it.
They do.
But man,
They're not
I tried to
scared.
sue the city a little. I called my attorney. They damaged me in a deal, and I was like, I called my attorney. I go, I want to file suit against them. They just damaged me on a phone call, like significantly.
Yeah.
And it happened with someone that didn't know what they were talking. He goes, "Oh, you're just gonna have to tear the building down." And my buyer was on the phone. He was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, you got to tear it down." Why? Well, just the cost to get it up to our standards. It's just going to be cheaper to tear it down and build a new one. I go, so what qualifies you to make that statement?
Right.
Well, just making a statement. I'm like, okay, well, we hang up the phone. My phone rings immediately.
Oh, yeah.
The buyer, hey.
About that.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Sounds like price just went down.
yeah. So I was like, I just got damaged from someone saying something
Right.
that they had no real business saying, And but
Yeah.
I hope Quick Trip wins.
Yeah.
We see a lot of that, whether it's the city of Frisco put a moratorium
Right.
on car washes.
Or drive-thrus.
No more car
or-
washes. Yeah, and we see it on drive-throughs. Hey, no drive-throughs will be permitted.
Mhm.
So we see that quite
Yeah.
a bit where cities are like, that's a detrimental use to our market. So we're gonna pull that back. It's like,
Right.
I don't know if a drive-through has really ever turned an area bad
Have
necessarily.
you seen
but-
how many of your moms
Right.
love that drive-thru?
Yeah, they
Yeah.
don't want to get out of the
Yeah.
car after soccer
Yeah.
practice.
Yes.
Yeah. The big thing in industrial right now is surfacing.
Yeah.
Like what material you're using as your hard surface, or
Okay.
so that, and the cost of concrete is 3 times the price, sometimes 5 times the price of base.
Right.
So is that a workaround? They're like, we know how to get around it.
Well, so like Haltom City, we have a more internally, we will not purchase a property in Haltom City if it's not solid surface already.
Yeah.
We just won't touch it.
Because of the cost.
Because if you go in there, like you buy a piece of dirt for $1 million and it's 1 acre. So
Mhm.
8 times 43,560 is like 250
grand.
250 grand.
Mhm.
A quarter of the price of the asset you bought is wrapped up in concrete.
Right.
And it's like, it doesn't make, the tenant can't pay for it.
Right.
It's not market lease rate.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes like you go with these big projects, 5 acres, millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And it's just, it makes it like, I'm at this, the project's free. Obviously, the seller won't do that, but
Right.
yeah, you got to march down the city and they don't care. They don't care. They're worried about dust, but
My brother bought a building that I ended up passing on in Haltom City, and they told him he would have to concrete the whole yard. But the tenant next door with all their equipment was on a rock yard, and we said, "Well, what about them?" They go, "Oh, well, we own that."
yeah.
It was the city of Haltom City's yard.
That's
So it was-
awesome.
In the city of Haltom, right? The city of Haltom City, if you have a building and the CO changes, not to a different use, same permitted use. So call it electrical supply to another electrical supply.
Yeah.
The CO changed, hard surface lot. You're like, what? Nothing changed. We just swapped out logos pretty much.
Right.
Nah, change it. Asphalt the whole thing. You're like, what?
Wow.
So,
well, it's a pretty good sesh.
Yeah.
A lot of info in there. So
yeah,
Good stuff, boys.
We'll
a lot of pontificating.
That's
That's what I spend most of my day doing.
well, cool. Well, we'll see y'all next month.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Get the
Been
update.
fun.
All right.
Yeah.
All
Thanks,
right.
boys.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.